Numbers never lie. That's what my father always told me. While my brother James was learning to schmooze clients and charm investors, I was learning the language of spreadsheets and financial statements. Dad understood. He'd built Sullivan Global Enterprises from nothing, and he knew that behind every successful company was someone who understood its true story through its numbers. The real power isn't in the boardroom, Emily, he'd say, reviewing quarterly reports with me late into the night. It's in knowing what these numbers mean. They tell you everything, if you know how to listen. I was listening now, staring at my computer screen at 2 a.m. My office dark except for the soft glow of monitors. The numbers were telling me something was very wrong at Sullivan Global. "Still here, sis?" James's voice made me jump. My brother stood in the doorway, impeccable in his tailored suit despite the late hour. "You know, normal people go home sometimes." I minimized the spreadsheet quickly, but not before noting the discrepancy in the Asian subsidiary's accounts. $50 million that seemed to appear and disappear like magic. "Just finishing up the quarterly audit," I said carefully. "Someone has to keep track of the details." James laughed, that rich, confident laugh that had charmed countless investors and business partners. Always the diligent one. That's our Emily, stuck in the details, while the rest of us focus on the big picture. The big picture. Like the mysterious new investors James had brought in 3 months ago, right after Dad's stroke. Like the sudden restructuring of our Asian operations. Like the offshore accounts I discovered hidden in layers of shell companies. "The board meeting's on Monday," James continued, walking into my office uninvited, as always. "I'll need the financial reports by tomorrow afternoon. There are some irregularities I need to check first," I said, watching his reaction carefully, especially in the Asian divisions. "Just clean it up and sign off." He cut me off, his smile never wavering. "You know how these international operations can be. Lots of moving parts. Moving parts, like the $50 million that kept moving in ways that defied both accounting principles and legal regulations." "James," I started, "as CFO, I have responsibility." "As CFO," he laughed again, but there was an edge to it now. "Emily, let's be real. You're CFO, because Dad felt guilty about giving me the CEO position. We both know who really runs this company." The words stung, but I kept my face neutral. 15 years I'd worked here, starting in the accounting department right out of college. I'd earned my CPA, then my MBA, worked my way up while James spent his time at charity galas and golf courses. When Dad promoted me to CFO 5 years ago, it wasn't guilt. It was recognition of the 100-hour weeks I'd put in, the millions I'd saved the company through careful financial management. "The numbers don't lie, James," I said quietly, echoing Dad's words. "And these numbers are telling me something's wrong." His smile vanished. "The numbers tell whatever story we need them to tell. That's business, sis. Maybe if you'd spent less time with your spreadsheets and more time in the real world, you'd understand that." I opened my mouth to argue, but my phone buzzed. A text from Maria, my assistant. "They're deleting files from the servers. Trading records, wire transfers, everything." My heart stopped. I'd asked Maria to monitor the system after hours, suspecting something like this might happen. But I'd hoped I was wrong. Hoped my own brother wouldn't. "I can't sign off on these reports," I said, standing up. "Not until I understand where this money is really going." James's face hardened. "Actually, you won't be signing anything." He pulled an envelope from his jacket. "The board has voted to terminate your position effective immediately. The board? I stared at him. There hasn't been a board meeting. Emergency session. Conference call. Your concerns about our international operations were deemed disruptive to company stability. He dropped the envelope on my desk. Clean out your office. Security will escort you out. You can't do this, I said, but even as the words left my mouth, I saw 2 security guards appear in the doorway. Dad trusted me too. Dad's in a hospital bed, James snapped. And this company needs real leadership, not some accountant obsessing over decimal points. Get out, Emily. You're done here. I looked at my brother, really looked at him, and for the first time, I saw him clearly. The designer suit couldn't hide the desperation in his eyes, the slight tremor in his hands. Whatever he was involved in, it was bigger than I'd imagined. Silently, I gathered my personal items into a box. Pictures of Dad and me at my MBA graduation. The calculator he'd given me on my first day of work. The family photo from better days, before Mom passed, before James decided success meant something different than Dad had taught us. Your company laptop and phone stay here, James said, watching me pack. And Emily? Don't try anything stupid. Remember who has the power here. I walked out without a word, past the security guards, past Maria's empty desk, past the portrait of Dad in the lobby. In my car, I pulled out my personal phone and sent 2 messages. First, to Maria, download everything. Use the secure server we discussed. Then to a number I'd hoped I'd never have to use. Robert Torres, my old college roommate, now a senior investigator with the SEC. Remember when you said you owed me a favor? I need it now. Finally, I opened my briefcase and removed the external hard drive I'd been updating daily for the past 3 months, ever since I'd first noticed the discrepancies, ever since James had started having private meetings with people who didn't show up in any official records. The numbers tell you everything, Dad's voice echoed in my memory, if you know how to listen. I'd been listening, Dad, and on Monday, everyone else would hear what the numbers had been telling me. James thought he'd won, thought firing me would silence the questions, bury the truth under layers of corporate bureaucracy and creative accounting. He forgot one crucial detail. I'd been tracking every number, every transaction, every lie for months, and I had proof of all of it. In my rearview mirror, I watched as the lights of Sullivan Global's headquarters grew distant. James would be calling emergency meetings now, trying to cover his tracks, but he'd never been good with details. Never understood that true power wasn't in the boardroom, it was in the numbers. Monday's board meeting would change everything. James just didn't know it yet. The weekend stretched before me like a battlefield waiting to be mapped. Sitting in my home office, surrounded by financial documents and hard drives, I began to piece together the puzzle I'd been collecting for months. Maria, what's our status? I asked during our secure video call. My assistant, though technically now my ex-assistant, had worked through the night. I've got everything, she confirmed, dark circles under her eyes. Trading records, wire transfers, emails. James didn't just delete files. He tried to rewrite them, but he doesn't know about our backup server. I smiled grimly. James had always underestimated the tech nerds, as he called them. What about the Asian subsidiaries? That's where it gets interesting. Maria shared her screen, showing a complex web of transactions. Remember that $50 million that kept disappearing? I traced it. They've been using our legitimate Asian operations as a front for money laundering. I finished, the pieces finally clicking into place. The new investors James brought in after Dad's stroke. They're using our company to clean dirty money. The scope of it was staggering. For 3 months, they've been running a sophisticated scheme, using Sullivan Global's reputation and international presence to make illegal funds appear legitimate. No wonder James had been so desperate to keep me away from the real numbers. My phone buzzed. Robert Torres from the SEC. Emily, his voice was serious. I've reviewed what you sent. This is bigger than corporate fraud. We're talking international money laundering, possible connections to organized crime. Are you sure you want to get involved? These people are destroying my father's company, I replied. I don't have a choice. Then we do this officially. I'm bringing in my team. But Emily, be careful. People like this, they don't just fire whistleblowers. After hanging up, I received an unexpected call from Samuel Wong, our longtime head of Asian operations. Miss Sullivan, he said quietly, I heard about what happened. There's something you should know. Your brother's new partners. They visited our offices last month, made certain demands. When I refused, they threatened my family. My blood ran cold. Why didn't you tell me sooner? They were watching us, but now that you're out, I have documents, records of meetings, things they didn't know I kept. Send everything, securely, and Samuel, get your family somewhere safe. Throughout Saturday, more allies emerged. Junior accountants who'd noticed discrepancies but been afraid to speak up. It's staff who'd been ordered to modify records. Even our old family lawyer, who'd resigned, rather than sign off on suspicious documents. Your father would be proud, he told me. He always said you were the one who truly understood the business. But James wasn't idle. By Saturday evening, Maria reported that he'd called an emergency executive meeting. They were planning to present a completely revised set of financial statements at Monday's board meeting, ones that would hide all traces of their illegal activities. They're going to pin any irregularities on you, Maria warned. Paint you as a disgruntled employee making false accusations. I worked through the night, organizing evidence, building an airtight case. Every transaction, every fraudulent record, every altered document carefully cataloged and cross-referenced. The numbers told a story of betrayal, greed, and corruption, but also of hubris. James and his partners had been so confident in their scheme that they'd left trails everywhere. Sunday morning brought an unexpected visitor, Lisa Chen, one of our largest legitimate investors. Something felt wrong about the recent reports, she said, sitting in my living room. The numbers didn't add up. When I asked questions, your brother gave smooth answers, but no real explanations. And now I'm worried about my investment and about George Sullivan's legacy. Your father built this company on integrity, Emily. He trusted you to protect that. I showed her some of what I'd discovered. Her face hardened as she understood the implications. The board needs to see this, she said. All of it. I'll make sure they do. But we weren't the only ones preparing for Monday. That afternoon, I received a warning from our head of security. James had hired private investigators to dig up dirt on me. They're trying to discredit you, he said. Looking for anything they can use. Bad investments, personal scandals, even old college photos. I almost laughed. Let them look. I'd spent my life focused on work, on learning the business, on making Dad proud. The worst they'd find would be some boring tax returns and a lot of late nights at the office. As Sunday evening approached, Maria called with urgent news. They're planning to announce a major restructuring tomorrow, she said. spinning off the Asian operations into a separate company. Once that happens, tracing the money will become almost impossible. I looked at the family photo on my desk. Dad, Mom, James and me at the company's 20th anniversary celebration. We were all smiling, proud of what our family had built. How had we gone from that to this? My phone buzzed with a text from James. "It's not too late to back down, sis. Take the severance package. Walk away. Some things are better left alone." I didn't reply. Instead, I sent one final email to Robert Torres, attaching the last pieces of evidence. "Everything's ready," I wrote. "Your team knows what to do." His response was immediate. "We'll be there. Just make sure the board stays in that room long enough to hear the truth." I spent the final hours of Sunday going over every detail one last time. The evidence was clear, irrefutable. But evidence alone wasn't enough. I needed to present it in a way that even James couldn't talk his way around. Dad's voice echoed in my memory. "Numbers tell stories, Emily, but it's people who have to listen." Tomorrow, they would have no choice but to listen. Tomorrow, every number, every transaction, every lie would be exposed. I picked up the family photo, touching Dad's face behind the glass. "I'll fix this," I promised. "Whatever it takes." Monday morning dawned cold and clear. I arrived at Sullivan Global's headquarters early, parking in my old spot out of habit. The security guard at the front desk, Mike, who'd watched me grow up in these halls, looked torn between duty and loyalty. "Miss Sullivan, I'm supposed to," he began. "She's with me," Lisa Chen interrupted, appearing at my side. As a major shareholder, her authority couldn't be questioned. "We're here for the board meeting." James had chosen the largest conference room for today's meeting, no doubt planning to make a show of the company's bright future. As board members filed in, I sat quietly in the back, ignoring the whispers and stares. At exactly 9 a.m., James strode in, flanked by his new partners. Men in expensive suits whose names appeared nowhere in official company records. He faltered slightly when he saw me, but recovered quickly. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began smoothly, "thank you for coming. Before we begin, I should address the elephant in the room. My sister Emily, our former CFO, has made some unfortunate accusations." "Accusations?" I stood up. "No, James. I've made discoveries, and the board needs to hear them." "Emily," he said, his smile strained, "you're not authorized to be here. Security?" "Actually," Lisa Chen interrupted, "as a major shareholder, I've invited Ms. Sullivan to present her findings. The board deserves to hear both sides." James's new partners shifted uncomfortably. One reached for his phone, but at that moment, the conference room doors opened again. Robert Torres walked in, followed by a team of SEC investigators. "Nobody leave this room," Torres announced, showing his credentials. "And please, everyone turn off your phones." "What is this?" James demanded, but I could see the fear breaking through his polished facade. "This," I said, connecting my laptop to the projector, "is what happens when you forget that numbers don't lie." For the next hour, I laid out everything. The money laundering scheme disguised as legitimate international trade, the falsified records, the threats against employees who asked questions. With each revelation, I watched James's face grow paler. "These accusations are ridiculous," one of his partners interjected. "You can't prove." "Actually," Samuel Wong's voice came through the video conference screen, "she can." Our head of Asian operations proceeded to share his own documentation, including recordings of threatening conversations. James tried one last time. The company needs this restructuring. We're expanding, growing. You're destroying everything Dad built. I cut him off. And for what? To impress these criminals? To feel powerful? You don't understand business. He spat. You never did. You were just an accountant. No, a weak voice said from the doorway. She's my daughter. Everyone turned. There, in a wheelchair pushed by his nurse, was our father. Dad? James whispered. You're supposed to be in the hospital. Lisa called me, Dad said, his voice thin but clear. Told me what was happening to my company, to my family. His eyes met mine, filled with tears and pride. Show them, Emily. Show them what you found. I pulled up the final set of documents, the complete trail of every illegal transaction, every falsified record, every dollar that had been laundered through our legitimate businesses. The SEC has everything, I announced. So do the FBI and Interpol. It's over, James. What happened next was chaos. James's partners tried to flee, but found federal agents waiting outside. James himself seemed to collapse inward, his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. Dad, he pleaded, I was trying to make the company bigger better. You were trying to make yourself bigger, Dad corrected sadly. Emily understood what I've always taught. Success means nothing without integrity. The next few hours were a blur of federal agents, statements, and arrests. James and his partners were led out in handcuffs. The board voted immediately to remove him as CEO and freeze all suspicious operations. Then came the surprise. The company needs leadership it can trust, Dad announced to the board. Someone who understands both the numbers and the values this company was built on. He looked at me. Emily, will you take the position? I stared at him, then at the board members who were nodding in agreement. Dad, are you sure? He smiled. That warm, proud smile I remembered from childhood. I've never been more sure of anything. The aftermath was both easier and harder than I expected. The company's stock took a hit when the news broke, but our transparency about the situation and immediate corrective actions helped restore investor confidence. Many of James's illegal deals could be unwound, saving us from major losses. More challenging was the personal cost. James faced serious criminal charges. Mom's old friends stopped inviting us to social events. But Dad was there every step of the way, back in the office part-time, helping me rebuild what had almost been lost. 6 months later, I sat in what had been James's office, my office now, looking at the same family photo I'd kept through everything. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. Ms. Sullivan? Maria entered, now officially my chief of staff. The new compliance team is ready for your review, and the Asian division reports record legitimate profits this quarter. I smiled. Dad always said, the numbers never lie. She finished with a grin. We know. That evening, I visited James in prison. He looked different, smaller somehow, without his expensive suits and confident smile. I'm sorry, he said, not meeting my eyes. I forgot what Dad taught us, about what really matters. The company's doing well, I told him. Honestly well. When you get out, if you want to learn the right way. He nodded slowly. Maybe start me in accounting. I laughed. The first real laugh we'd shared in years. We'll see. Later, having dinner with Dad in his favorite restaurant, I asked the question that had been bothering me. Did you know? When you made me CFO? that something like this might happen? He set down his fork. I knew James was charming but careless. And I knew you were not just an accountant. You were someone who understood that numbers are really about people, about trust, about doing things right. He squeezed my hand. You saved more than the company, Emily. You saved our family's legacy. Looking at him, I realized he was right. Sullivan Global wasn't just about balance sheets and profit margins. It was about the values behind the numbers, the trust we'd rebuilt, the lessons we'd learned. James had thought power came from corner offices and fancy titles, but Dad had been right all along. Real power came from understanding the truth in the numbers and having the courage to stand by that truth, no matter the cost. Today, Sullivan Global is stronger than ever. Our compliance department is the industry standard. Young accountants fight for internships here, knowing they'll learn more than just numbers. They'll learn integrity. And in my office, next to the family photo, sits a new plaque with Dad's old saying, "Numbers never lie, but it takes wisdom to hear what they're telling you." James gets out of prison next year. Yesterday, he sent me his application for an entry-level position in our accounting department. I smiled as I approved it. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone, it's about showing them a better way. I straightened my simple black dress, checking my reflection in the hallway mirror of my parents' suburban home. No designer labels, no flashy jewelry, just clean, professional lines and comfortable shoes. The kind of outfit you'd expect from someone who spent their days managing warehouse logistics. Safia, Mom's voice carried from the dining room. Everyone's waiting. Everyone meant my brother Michael, the successful real estate developer, his wife Amanda with her family money and country club membership, and my parents' carefully curated collection of family friends, all gathered to celebrate Dad's retirement from his mid-level banking job. I took a deep breath, remembering why I'd agreed to come tonight. 10 years of condescension, of subtle jabs about my career choices, of being the family disappointment. It was all about to change. They just didn't know it yet. "There she is," Mom said as I entered, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. We were just telling the Andersons about Michael's new development project. The luxury condos. Michael lounged in his chair, Rolex catching the light. Breaking ground next month. Just need that construction loan to finalize. I nodded, taking my seat at the far end of the table, my usual spot, away from the important conversations. A text buzzed on my phone. "All set for tomorrow, boss. Banks open at 9. "How's your job, Safia?" Mrs. Anderson asked, clearly struggling to remember what I did. Before I could answer, Mom jumped in. "Oh, Safia's between things right now, still figuring out her path." "Actually," I started. She manages a warehouse." Michael interrupted with a smirk. "Inventory and shipping. Very exciting stuff." The table rippled with polite murmurs and quickly changed subjects. I sipped my water, watching Mom shoot me a warning look. "Don't embarrass us," that look said. "Know your place." If they only knew. 10 years ago, fresh out of college with my logistics degree, I had taken a job as an assistant manager at Global Freight Solutions. While Michael was busy partying through business school, I was learning every aspect of the supply chain industry. While he networked at cocktail parties, I built relationships with truck drivers, customs agents, and dock workers, the people who actually made global commerce possible. "Did you hear?" Amanda's voice cut through my thoughts. "The Richardsons' daughter just made junior partner at her law firm. Wasn't she in your class, Safia?" "She was," I replied calmly. Jessica's doing well. See, Mom seized the opening. It's not too late to go back to school, honey. Law school, maybe an MBA. Something respectable. I set down my fork. I like my job, Mom. Sweetheart. Dad joined in, his tone patronizing. You're too smart to spend your life in a warehouse. Even that nice Martinez boy from church became a dentist. The nice Martinez boy had also asked me out last month, then ghosted me after learning what I did for a living. Is loss. Speaking of careers, Michael said, Amanda and I are looking at vacation homes in Aspen. Once this development deal goes through, we'll finally be able to afford. If it goes through, I murmured. The table went quiet. What's that supposed to mean? Michael demanded. I shrugged. Construction loans are tough right now. Banks are tightening requirements, especially for luxury developments. And you know this because... Amanda's voice dripped with disdain. Just something I heard at work. Mom stood abruptly. Sophia, help me with dessert. In the kitchen, she rounded on me. What are you doing? Your brother has important people at this dinner. People who could help your career if you just... Just what, Mom? Pretend to be something I'm not. Don't mention your pathetic job again, she hissed. It's embarrassing enough having to explain to our friends why you waste your potential in some warehouse. I thought about the documents waiting in my briefcase, about the meetings scheduled for tomorrow, about the empire I'd built while they weren't paying attention. Who wants a warehouse manager in the family? Michael called from the dining room, loud enough to carry. Probably can't even afford the maintenance fees at my new development. I walked back in, calm settling over me like a shield. You're right, probably can't. But tomorrow might bring surprises. What's that supposed to mean? Mom demanded. I smiled. Just that things aren't always what they seem. They had no idea how true that was. That assistant manager position? I'd used it to learn every flaw, every inefficiency in the global supply chain. While my bosses focused on quarterly reports, I developed a revolutionary logistics software system. When they passed me over for promotion, I quit and started my own company. Atlas Logistics began in my garage apartment, just me and a laptop. But I understood something my family never had. Real power isn't in flashy developments or country club memberships. It's in controlling how things move. Every product, every material, every component has to get from point A to point B. I made that process seamless. Major manufacturers noticed. Tech companies noticed. Anyone who needed reliable, efficient shipping became my client. Atlas grew silently, deliberately, until we controlled logistics for half the country's major retailers. I kept my old warehouse job title, working from the front lines, seeing opportunities others missed. The office politics and backstabbing that consumed my brother's world meant nothing in mine. I built something real. And tomorrow, when Michael's loan application crossed my desk, because yes, I owned the logistics company that the bank used to verify supply chain stability for construction projects, everything would change. More wine, Sophia. Amanda offered condescendingly. Drown your sorrows about that warehouse? I declined politely. Early meeting tomorrow. Oh, counting boxes. Michael laughed at his own joke. Something like that. The rest of dinner passed in a blur of subtle digs and pointed comments. Mom kept trying to set me up with successful men from church. Dad hinted at job openings at his bank. Michael bragged about his development plans. I let them talk. In my car later that night, I called my assistant. Everything ready for tomorrow? Yes, Ms. Martinez. The bank's due diligence team will discover that the proposed construction site has severe supply chain vulnerabilities. Atlas Logistics' report will effectively kill the loan. Unless they contract exclusively with us for all materials transport at premium rates. I smiled. And who owns Atlas Logistics? On paper, a dozen shell companies. In reality, you're the sole owner and CEO. Worth approximately $300 million as of last quarter. Tomorrow, my family would learn that their embarrassing warehouse manager controlled one of the largest logistics networks in the country. That Michael's success or failure depended entirely on my company's approval. That every snide comment, every dismissive gesture had been directed at someone who could buy and sell their whole world 10 times over. But tonight, I drove home to my modest apartment above the warehouse. Tomorrow would come soon enough. A text from Mom. Hope you'll think about what we discussed. Law school applications are still open for spring. I didn't reply. The numbers in my company's books would reply for me soon enough. The bank's conference room had the sterile, polished feel of every financial institution I'd ever visited. But today, sitting quietly in the corner while Michael presented his development proposal, I savored every detail. As you can see, Michael gestured to his sleek slides. The pinnacle at Highland Park will redefine luxury living in our city. 40 stories, premium amenities, spectacular views. I watched the loan committee's faces, 5 senior bankers who'd evaluate the $50 million construction loan application. Mom and Dad sat near Michael, beaming with pride. They'd called in favors to get this meeting at the prestigious First National. Very impressive, Mr. Martinez, the committee chair said. However, we have some concerns about supply chain stability. In today's market. Oh, that's all arranged, Michael waved dismissively. We've got contracts with multiple suppliers. Actually, a new voice spoke up. That's why I'm here. Everyone turned as Thomas Bradford, CEO of First National Bank, walked in. My parents' eyes widened. The CEO himself rarely attended loan committees. Tom, Dad stood, eager to leverage his old banking connection. What a pleasant surprise. Bradford nodded politely, but kept his eyes on his tablet. We've received some concerning reports about the project's logistics viability. According to Atlas Logistics, the color drained from Michael's face. Atlas was the gold standard in supply chain analysis. Their reports could make or break major projects. Atlas, he stammered. But they're just a logistics company. Surely the bank doesn't. Atlas Logistics, Bradford continued, controls 80% of construction material transport in this region. Their analysis suggests severe supply chain vulnerabilities at the proposed site. Without their support, material costs could increase by 40%. Michael's perfect presentation was crumbling. But we can find other transport companies. In theory, yes. In practice, Atlas has exclusive contracts with most major suppliers. They've revolutionized the industry. Very impressive company. Very private. I shifted in my seat, enjoying the show. What do you suggest? Mom asked anxiously. Well, Bradford checked his notes. Atlas has indicated they might consider a premium service contract. If you're interested, their CEO is actually here today. Michael looked around frantically. Here? Where? I stood up slowly, smoothing my simple black dress. Right here. The silence was absolute. No, Michael whispered. Yes, Bradford smiled. Ms. Martinez, has been one of our most valuable clients for years. Atlas Logistics holds significant accounts with us. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Dad seemed to age 10 years in 10 seconds. Michael just stared, his expensive suit suddenly seeming like a child's costume. You, he managed finally. You're Atlas. Founded it 10 years ago, I said calmly, while managing that embarrassing warehouse job. But you never said anything. All those times you mocked my career, dismissed my potential, treated me like the family failure. I pulled out my own tablet. Let's talk about those supply chain vulnerabilities. For the next hour, I methodically outlined every flaw in Michael's logistics plan, the impossible delivery schedules, the unrealistic cost projections, the bottlenecks he'd never considered. This is absurd, he finally exploded. You're doing this to sabotage me. No, I corrected. I'm doing my job. The same job you've ridiculed for years. Sophia, Mom tried, her voice shaking. Surely you can help your brother? Family should. Families should support each other. I cut in. Not tear each other down. Not shame someone for their choices. Not decide someone's worth based on appearances. Bradford cleared his throat. Perhaps we should discuss Atlas Premium Service option. I pulled up the contract. Triple our standard rates. Exclusive 5-year commitment. Non-negotiable. Triple? Michael choked. That would eat most of our profit margin. Welcome to the real world of logistics, brother, where actual work matters more than flashy presentations. Dad finally spoke up. All this time, while we were pushing you to change careers, I was building an empire. I finished. One warehouse at a time. One contract at a time. One innovation at a time. The loan committee shifted uncomfortably. Without Atlas's support, the project was effectively dead. Michael knew it. My parents knew it. Everyone in that room knew it. The premium contract, Michael said finally, defeated. Can we see the terms? I sent the document to his tablet. As he read, his face went through a fascinating range of emotions. Shock at the costs, anger at the conditions, and finally, devastating realization at the signature block. This has to be approved by the CEO personally. That's right. I smiled. That would be me. The warehouse manager you're so ashamed of. Mom started to cry quietly. Dad stared at his hands. The loan committee tried to look anywhere but at our family drama. Mr. Bradford, I said, standing. I believe we're done here. Unless my brother would like to revise his proposal. I'll need time to recalculate, Michael mumbled. As I walked out, Bradford fell into step beside me. That was rather dramatic. Sometimes lessons need to be dramatic to stick. And the premium contract. Will you actually enforce those rates? I thought about years of snide comments, of dismissive gestures, of being the family embarrassment. That depends, I said, on what I hear at the next family dinner. In the elevator, my phone buzzed with messages. Mom begging me to reconsider. Dad asking to meet. Michael's wife, Amanda, suddenly very interested in getting coffee. But the message that caught my eye was from our warehouse supervisor. Loading dock needs approval on the Johnson shipment, boss. I smiled. Time to get back to my embarrassing job. The news spread through our social circle like wildfire. Sophie Martinez, the warehouse manager, was actually a business mogul. My parents' phones exploded with calls from friends suddenly eager to reconnect with their successful daughter. I ignored it all, focusing on what I'd always focused on. running my company. Ms. Martinez, my assistant Sarah called through the intercom. Your mother's here. Again. It had been 2 weeks since the bank meeting. 2 weeks of avoided calls and declined invitations. But I couldn't hide forever. Send her in. Mom looked different, smaller somehow, without her usual perfectly coordinated outfit and immaculate makeup. She clutched her purse like a shield. This is where you work? She asked, looking around my office. Not the corner warehouse office she'd imagined. Instead, the entire top floor of downtown's most prestigious building. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, including the empty lot where Michael's development should have been rising. This is one of my offices, I replied. I'd prefer being at the warehouses, where the real work happens. Why didn't you tell us? The question burst out of her. All these years, we thought. You thought what you wanted to think, Mom. You saw a warehouse manager and decided that wasn't good enough. Never asked what I actually did. Never showed interest in my work. We were worried about you. Living in that tiny apartment, working those long hours. That apartment is above our main distribution center. I lived there because I wanted to, not because I had to. I gestured to the city view. I could have bought this building years ago, but flash and status. That was never my goal. She sank into a chair, looking lost. Your father hasn't slept since we found out. He keeps talking about all the times he tried to get you entry-level bank jobs, thinking he was helping. And Michael? He's struggling. The development deal fell through completely. No other logistics company will touch it after Atlas declined. I pulled up my tablet, showing her Atlas's real-time operations map. Thousands of dots moving across the country, trucks, ships, planes, all coordinated through our systems. This is what I built, Mom. While you were embarrassed by my job, I was revolutionizing how goods move around the world. While you were trying to set me up with dentists and lawyers, I was building something that actually matters. I'm so sorry, she whispered. We were so wrong. A knock interrupted us. Sarah again. Sorry, Ms. Martinez, but we have a situation at the Port of Seattle. Major weather delay, affecting the tech corridor shipments. Give me a minute. I turned back to Mom. This is why I love my job. Real problems, real solutions, not just status and appearances. She watched in silence as I coordinated with our port managers, rerouting shipments through alternate channels, adjusting schedules in real time. Millions of dollars of goods, thousands of jobs, all depending on quick, smart decisions. You're amazing at this, she said finally. I always was. You just never saw it. Another knock. This time Michael, looking uncomfortable in a cheap suit. Sophia, He stopped, seeing Mom. Oh, I can come back. Stay, I said. Family meeting might as well be now. He sat heavily, avoiding my eyes. I lost everything, he admitted. The development deal, my investors, even Amanda. She left. Says she didn't marry a failure. He laughed bitterly. Funny, that's how we treated you all these years. Michael, I began, but he cut me off. No, let me finish. I was so busy playing big shot developer, I never actually learned the business. Not like you did. You started from the ground up, learned every detail, built something real. Mom wiped her eyes. We were such snobs. All that time bragging about Michael's projects. And our real success story was right there, managing warehouses. My phone buzzed. Dad, requesting access from lobby security. Send him up, I told Sarah. When Dad walked in, the family circle was complete. He looked older, tired, but something else too, proud, maybe for the first time, of what I'd actually achieved. I drove by the warehouse today, he said quietly. Your warehouse. Saw the trucks lined up, everything running like clockwork. Got me thinking about all those dinners where we treated you like. He trailed off. Like an embarrassment, I finished. He nodded sadly. While you were building an empire, we were measuring success by country club memberships. I've never been more wrong about anything in my life. I pulled up another screen. The contract Michael had refused at the bank. The premium rates, I said, were never real. That was just a lesson in humility. Michael's head snapped up. What? Atlas will support your development. Standard rates. But I held up a hand as hope flooded his face. You're going to learn this business from the ground up, starting in our warehouse management training program. You mean 6 months loading trucks, learning logistics, understanding how things actually work. No shortcuts, no fancy titles, just real work. I'll do it, he said immediately. Whatever it takes. Mom leaned forward. And us? How do we fix what we broke? I thought about all the family dinners, all the subtle jabs, all the attempts to change me into their version of success. Come see what I actually do, I said. Not what you imagine I do. Come to the warehouses. Learn about my world. Stop being ashamed of honest work. The next month wrought changes no one could have predicted. Michael traded his Rolex for a safety vest, learning logistics from the ground up. Mom started volunteering at our workforce development program, helping employees earn their GEDs. Dad became fascinated by our technology, often spending hours understanding our systems. The family dinners changed too. Now they were at my apartment above the warehouse, with conversations about real work, real challenges, real achievements. No more social climbing, no more status anxiety. One evening, as we watched trucks being loaded below, Mom asked, "Are you happy, Safia?" Really happy. I looked at my family, finally seeing me, finally understanding what I'd built, and at the empire of motion I'd created. I always was Mom, moving things, solving problems, building something real. That's what I love. The money, the power, that was never the point. We understand that now, Dad said. Thanks for not giving up on us. Michael, fresh from his shift, joined us still wearing his safety vest. Hey sis, remember when I used to mock your pathetic warehouse job? Hard to forget. Today I learned how to optimize loading patterns for maximum efficiency. Actually pretty amazing stuff. I smiled. Welcome to my world, brother, where success isn't about looking important. It's about being important, he finished. To the world, to the economy, to people who depend on us. Later that night, alone in my office, I looked at our family photo from Dad's retirement dinner, the last picture of us before everything changed. We looked perfect on the surface, wealthy, successful, proper, and completely fake. Now we were real. Michael was discovering the satisfaction of actual achievement. Mom was learning the value of meaningful work. Dad was seeing success through new eyes. And me, I was exactly who I'd always been. The warehouse manager who built an empire. The logistics expert who kept the world moving. The daughter who finally taught her family what success really means. My phone buzzed. A problem at the Chicago hub needed attention. I smiled, ready to tackle another real challenge in my embarrassing job. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about proving people wrong. It's about showing them a better way to be right.